The movie opens with a young lady. She's laying down by her husband in bed, just staring into nothingness. She doesn't have a particularly happy look on her face. She seems like she's got something on her mind. Something is troubling her, right? And then she's laying on her back, and then she switches and lays on her side. And then we see that her attention is caught by this red uh, kid toy. It's a boat lying there, and then she just looks at it, and it feels like her sadness gets even deeper. And then she quietly slips out of the room with the toy boat, and then goes downstairs, opens her kitchen cabinet, and picks up a Swiss Army knife. She walks out of the home, and we see that she leaves her phone behind. So you might be thinking, oh, she's trying to get some me time, sort of disconnect from her phone, etc. Right? And then she drives off from her home. It's super early in the morning. And then we see her driving, and enters a mountainous place. As she's driving into the state park, we see that she's looking at the little toy boat, and she's distracted by it. She's getting sadder and sadder. And then she drives into it. We see a signboard advertising that it's a state park. So it's a park area where with mountains, trees, where people can go and just walk and be in nature. She enters the park and starts on the trail. And she gets to a point where we see they've enacted a memorial. When someone dies at a particular spot, people like put flowers, teddy bear, notes, a picture of the person, all these lovey-dovey stuff were there as sort of a way to remember this person by. So then she picks up the picture in that particular memorial, and it's a little boy, and she starts sniffing. It's like she wants to cry, kind of. So we know that okay, this little boy is somebody she knows, she loves, who, but judging by the memorial, has passed on, and it's really affected her. Could this be the reason why she's so sad now? She takes the red toy boat, right, and then she puts it into the memorial. So it means that that little toy red boot is likely for this little boy who passed on at the park. And then she goes to a tree standing there, and then carves C plus I plus M. I'm guessing her husband's name, the little boy's name. Who knows at this point? And they've put these temporary barriers after the memorial as though to sort of caution people that hey, don't go past this point. But it's such a flimsy barrier. It's not something that can really stop someone who wants to go on. So then she just bypasses the barrier, and she walks to the very edge of the mountain, and she's just standing there staring blankly, having this like really sad look on her face. It's almost looking as though she's seriously considering jumping and ending her life. Even though she seems resolved, though you can tell she's scared, right? She looks down, then she takes a step closer to the ledge. She's dangerously close to it, trying to brace herself for what she's about to do. And just when she's about to step off it, she hears a deep sigh behind her. And this dude is like, hello, he starts talking plenty. He's given over friendly to me, right? Okay, so the dude starts talking, blah, blah, blah. He's talking a lot. Then he's like, oh, I saw the memorial back there. Is that your? And the lady looks kind of annoyed, and she's like, I'm not talking about it. He's like, oh. And then she sort of diverts her attention from him and goes back to doing what she came there to do, right? Focusing on jumping. So the dude introduces himself. He's like, I'm Richard. And the lady just she seems very annoyed because she has a purpose for which she's there. And she keeps looking down, keeps breathing heavy. Like she has the energy of someone who has resolved to do something, and they are trying to concentrate on doing it. And she doesn't really pay him any mind. And then he's like, okay, I mean, if you're not going to step back from the ledge, at least tell me your name. I know you want to be left alone. I also want to be left alone. I mean, that's why I'm here this early. Dude starts saying what sounds like a motivational, he was trying to convince her to sort of step back from the edge of the mountain. And she's like, "You're not gonna stop me." So he has already clocked that she's trying to end herself. And I don't know whether he thinks he's Tony Robbins or what, but he started giving her a motivational speech and she just cut him off. She's like, "You're not gonna stop me." And I was like, okay. And then he started his own story. I don't know why he's making this about himself. He tells a story about how he used to be like super into cars and how he loved the car so much. And then one day he and his girlfriend Chloe were arguing while he was driving the car, and then he crashed the car. And he was like, I don't want to tell you my last words to her, implying that Chloe passed away in the car. And he was heavily injured in the car. He says for a couple of weeks he was laying in the bed incapacitated. He couldn't move. He was complaining. He was like, everybody that came in, all they could say was, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And it seems like saying that I'm sorry and not, it didn't do anything to like alleviate his sorrow at the passing of his girlfriend. So I guess the lady standing on the edge of the mountain could relate to that. So she opened up and began also telling her story about how her husband and her son came to the park, and then her husband was in the middle of carving the family's names in the tree, and the son was like, he's gonna find some sticks to roast marshmallows on it. So he went looking around for the sticks, and she went about doing what she was there to do, I think, which was setting the fire while her husband was carving the names on the tree. And none of them noticed it. They didn't hear anything before they knew, like they weren't hearing anything. So if you've ever been a parent, if you're not hearing anything, that's it's a cause to be like worried, right? So then they start looking around for him. And that's when they realized that he actually fell down the mountainside. So after she's done telling this her sad story, she's like, "Ugh, the world takes it what it wants. And I wish it had taken me." Basically saying that she wished she had passed away instead of her son. She went on talking about how she can't cry, and that means that she must be broken because the natural and expected human reaction to a tragedy is that you cry. So the strange dude, after hearing her say that, was like, broken doesn't have to mean hopeless. When he's done saying that, he signs and then he gets up and he's like, I mean, I can't say it's a pleasure to meet you, but it's a beautiful day. And that's when she finally introduces herself, that her name is Iris. Richard is like, I'm not going to tell you not to do what you're about to do right now, but it's a beautiful day. He walks off. He moves away from the edge and he's now in like the forest area, getting closer to like the safer zone. And as he's walking, he hears a twig break. Then he turns around and he sees Iris. And she smiles at him, meaning that whatever they spoke about, it sort of touched her heart. And she decided not to go forward with ending herself. Richard is relieved to see that she decided not to kill herself. Sorry, not to end herself. So, so they sort of continue on the walk back to like where the cars are parked. And when they get there, there are only two cars in this like big parking lot. And this guy, Iris got there first, right? This guy parked ridiculously close to her, like her driver's side. And I'm like, there's so much space in this place. Why would this man park so close to her? And Iris is like a really, really thin woman. And she had to like squeeze herself in there and try to get to her door. And by that time, Richard was sitting in his seat, and then he knocked on the window and was like, "Oh, looks like I blocked you in." And she's like, "Yeah, you did." So she's struggling to open the door and like sort of cramp herself into it. And Richard gets out of the car You would think if there's a considerate guy, he would quickly like drive off so that she would be comfortable to enter into a car. But he didn't do that. He got out of the car and came and stood sort of at the end of their where the cars end. So Iris has opened the door. She's trying to get into it, and then Richard is standing at the other side. So she's in the middle of her opened door, and the only other way that she can easily just come out, Richard is standing there, and he's holding what looks like an umbrella. And Iris is confused. She's like, why? Are you expecting rain? And Richard says something to the effect of, you can never be too prepared. And he takes a step towards her. And that is, I think, the first moment during this interaction that she actually feels legitimate fear, like, oh, I'm actually in this like isolated place with this dude I kind of don't know at, well, not kind of, I actually don't know. I just met like a couple at most hours ago. So she's suddenly afraid, realizing these things, that okay, this dude may not be normal, he may be dangerous. And then he takes another step close to her, and she's like, Richard. And his whole demeanor changes. Before, his demeanor was friendly, kind, sort of, but then his whole demeanor changes. His even the tone of his voice changes, and he's like, why do you keep calling me that? And then that's the moment she realized that, oh God, I'm actually in trouble. I should have chosen the bear, not the man. And the umbrella he was holding, he just uses it on her, and turns out it's actually a taser. So this dude has a taser that looks like an umbrella, and she passes out, and the screen goes dark. We all pass out with her. With her passed out, Richard takes out these, I don't know what they call them, or rather, I've forgotten what they call them. They're like those temporary makeshifts. I don't want to call them handcuffs. They're usually plastic. And then he placed her hands behind her, and he used it on her. So her hands are tied behind her essentially. And then he puts her legs together and then plays the same thing there. So then her legs are also tied up. He carries her and puts her in the back seat of his car. He's essentially incapacitated her now. And he drives off with her in his back seat. Iris wakes up to find herself tied, hands tied behind her back, legs tied together. She starts breathing, panting. Can you imagine just passing out in such a scary circumstance and then waking up and finding yourself hog tied in the backseat of this weirdo's car? She's wearing, you remember she left her phone charging when she left the house because she was trying to end herself. What does she need a phone for? But she was wearing these Apple watches. So when she wakes up, she tries to like manipulate her body and pull herself into a more constricted position and trying to like press on the Apple phone, trying to call something. And Richard says something to the effect of, sure, go through the process. Everybody does. But there's no red dot, meaning there's no network. Everybody does. What does that mean? He's done this before, multiple times. It's giving us the impression that dude is a serial killer. Okay, so she keeps pressing on the Apple Watch, like at her back, and just like he said, there's no service, so she can't really do anything with the Apple Watch. And he's like, too bad your phone is not close by, meaning that he searched her front pocket and didn't find her phone, right? And then she's like, please don't do this. And Richard casually goes, oh, that reminds me, I brought you something. And remember the little red toy she put in her son's memorial? He had taken it and then he put it beside her. So it's like this dude, he's not just trying to cause physical pain, but he gets off on like the emotional turmoil that he's inflicting on this person, because she confided in him about the whole thing. He probably saw her put the toy down there and then walked to the edge. And he picked it up and brought it to her. And you would see this a lot throughout the movie. What people tell him, this dude would turn it around and then use it as a way to inflict psychological trauma on the people. Okay, so fortunately for Iris, it looks like even though he searched the front of her pocket for her phone, he did not think to search the back of her pocket, like her back pockets. So remember when she came downstairs the first time, she took the Swiss knife from her kitchen cabinet. So when she realized that the phone thing wasn't working, she slyly put her hand into her back pocket and picked out the knife, and then began cutting the constraints, the restraints that he had put on her. And then she started talking about, I think she started talking in order to distract him so he doesn't hear the noise she's making. She was like, tell me about Chloe. If you remember, Chloe is the girlfriend he was arguing with when he had the car accident, the story he used to sort of soften her up for her to open up to him. And he's like, no, tell me about your son. So it looks like she's an intelligent girl. She's clocking that, oh, this dude uses people's like stuff against them. So she's also trying to learn some things about him to see what she can also use to get herself out of this pickle. She reveals that, oh, her son was called Mateo. And immediately she gives that information. She reverts back to talking about Chloe. Was she pretty? She asked. She kept cutting at the restraints, and then he was like, I know what you're doing. And she immediately pauses. She was wondering, okay, does he think I'm trying to distract so I can catch my restraint? She thought he had some way, somehow realized that she was cutting the restraints behind her back. He went on to mention that like she's trying to humanize herself so that she would make it more difficult for him to kill her. That's when she realized that okay, he doesn't literally know what she's doing. He just sort of is generalizing based off of his past experience of killing other people, I guess. He reveals to her that he has a place up in the woods. She's like, okay, and what are you going to do to me? And he gets this weird look on his face. I don't know. You see, like when somebody is reminiscing about an experience that they had that was so fulfilling to them, the look they have on their face. That was the look that came on upon his face in that moment. And then he was like, I want to braid your hair. He said it so softly. He said it like it was this fond memory he was remembering. And in that moment, she finished cutting the restraints. In the moment she did, she got up and then she tried to stab him with a Swiss knife. His reflexes are fast because he clogged it and then sort of just turned her hand away, and then the knife entered into the passenger seat cushion, and she kicked him. And in the midst of that whole mess, the car veered off the road and then it crashed into a tree. They start struggling, and Iris gets a hold of his passenger seat. He kills people, but he's also a law-abiding citizen when it comes to motor and traffic rules, I guess, because his seatbelt was on, and then she started using that to sort of strangle him. And I don't know if you've seen these self-defense videos that go around. What they usually advise is that you use that feature on your car seat that lets the seat sort of go back. So as she was strangling him with the car seat, he did that, and then it rendered her strangling efforts ineffective, essentially. And they keep struggling in the car, and then Iris thankfully gets a hold of the Swiss knife again. She's able to remove it from the passenger car seat. And in that moment, he saw that, oof, his life was in danger because she has a knife. So he opened the car door and he got out of it and fell beside his seat. That was when Iris was able to also get out of her seat and then use the knife to cut the restraints on her leg. Her son's red toy boat also fell down. So then she took it and then pocketed it. Richard stood up and he started talking again. He seemed very, what's the word? Intrigued by the fact that just a few minutes, I don't know about a few, at least an hour ago, she was willing to end it all. She wanted to end her life. And right now, she's literally fighting for her life. And he asked her, "Are you feeling it yet?" Iris is confused, like, what do you mean? And then he takes out from his pocket a syringe, insinuating that he had injected her with something. And Iris was like, "You poisoned me." He said, "No, no, no. Nah, I'm not horrible. I didn't poison you. I only injected you with a relaxant." And he started like explaining to her what is going to be happening to her. He let her know that in the next 20 minutes, she's going to be completely paralyzed. It's going to start with um her like base level motor skills, her ability to hold a knife and basic things like that will stop. Then soon her legs will begin to tingle. Her ability to walk will be compromised. You'll not be able to walk. Soon after that, her ability to talk will go away. So in the span of the next 20 minutes, she's going to be completely paralyzed. And his reason for doing this is that it's going to make whatever his plan is to do to her easier on both of them. Initially, he said his plan was to braid her hair. So I don't know how braiding someone's hair, you need to paralyze them completely in order to braid their hair. But that was the explanation he gave. So his energy is like, this, like, you have nothing to do, so just give in to me. So he was like, come on, like, you have nowhere to go, we are isolated. And Iris, being the badass that she is, she didn't she didn't feel like she has no choice. She turned and began running away, and it was like, you're only making it work faster. But she didn't mind him. She kept running. Just a few seconds after she began running, the moment he told her, you're only making it work faster, she dropped the knife. So it seems the effects have started, right? The motor skills, she's beginning to lose them. She didn't bother stopping, wasting time trying to pick it up. He has already explained to her what's happening. So she kept running faster because she needs to get away from him as quickly as possible before her legs also give out. Iris runs deeper into, I don't know whether I should call it a forest or a wood or the woods, but she runs deeper into it. And then she pauses and she can feel that something is going on in her body, right? So she starts counting her fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, to make sure that they are working well. And as she's getting deeper into it, it gets to a point where she can't count her fingers again, meaning that the the paralysis is progressing. And the dude is still chasing after her. He's like, it only lasts an hour. And then after that, we'll have the whole weekend to ourselves. So the paralysis, it's going to, when after full paralysis, it's going to take her about an hour for her to regain her motor skills. So it's not a permanent thing. That's good, but in that one, he can do a lot. When Iris realizes that she can no longer like count her fingers like this, 1, 2, 3, she sets the timer on her watch to 20 minutes because he told her in 20 minutes she'll be fully paralyzed. And then she keeps running, running. And it gets to a point her legs start to give out. And I don't know how this man is not catching up to her because she seems severely compromised in like her ability to move. So when she realized that okay, she has 3 minutes more and she's going to be fully paralyzed, she slows down on the running, on the dragging of it, if you can call it running, because she was like, it was a half limp, half stroll. She slows down on it and starts thinking about how to hide herself because if she gets completely paralyzed and she's not hidden, she will just drop and be there, pray for this guy to come and find her. Okay, so the way Iris was moving super slow, I suspect Richard got complacent, right? Instead of running at full speed chasing after her, he decided to just stroll and be like, wait it out, wait for her to become completely paralyzed so that she wouldn't have any fight in her by the time he met her again and he could just pick her up and run with her. I think that's how she was able to get away from him that quickly. But when she realized that she has less than 3 minutes left and the effects were taken, like she could feel the effects, her body was about to give out on her. So she found a great hiding place, which was a tree whose roots, like a huge tree whose roots had outgrown the land available. So it ended up carving sort of a nice cocoon where if you are standing at this place, you can't see the hole over there. But if you are standing from this direction, you can see the hole. So she hid in there, and Richard was standing at this side, so he couldn't see where she was laying down. Where she had hidden herself, Richard couldn't see. And from his point of view, it looks like it's just flat land that leads to a stream. He couldn't see that there was a hole under that she could hide in. It was a great hiding place. He stood there, thought he must have missed her somehow, and turned and began walking away. But unfortunately for her, that place, though, was a good hiding place. Ants were there, like those big black ants that they bite, and their bite is so painful. They were there and they were walking all over her, walking all over her. They began to bite, and dangerous, like it looked like one was getting really close to even her eye. And so she, in a panic, she screamed, and that alerted Richard that, oh, she's where he was leaving. There's something that is hiding her. And so Richard turned and started going back to find her. And by that time, her legs had given out on her. So she started crawling, crawling, crawling. Fortunately for her, not too far down that road, there was a stream with water running. And she crawled and quickly got into the stream before Richard got to her, and just laid in the stream and let the stream carry her to safety, away from Richard, the serial killer. So when she felt like the stream had carried her to a healthy distance away from Richard, she fortunately got to where there was a log. A log had fallen, a tree had fallen into the stream. So it was like a log in it. And even though her legs had given up on her, her hands had not yet given up on her. So then she hugged the log, and then with that drag, the log was attached to land. So then she hugged the log and then dragged herself from the stream to land, and then crawled a distance from the stream. It seems even though it wasn't yet up to the 20 minutes Richard gave her, because of all the like the adrenaline, the running, and everything that she was doing, it caused the paralytic, is that the word? The paralytic to like move and run faster in her body. So then it was affecting her. She was feeling the effects much quicker. So when she crawled a little distance into land, like she almost drowned in that stream, to be honest. So all of that, it was like she was beat. So she just laid there until the paralytic completely took over her body, and she was paralyzed. She couldn't talk, she couldn't walk, she couldn't hold anything, but she could move her eyes. So that's a good thing. So as she laid in the field, unable to move, her watch eventually ran out on the 20 minutes. So then the alarm started beeping. Beep, 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 meaning the 20 minutes was up. She saw in a distance that there was movement, somebody was around. And she couldn't do anything. She was just laying there, her eyes wide open, just watching, watching. And then as the person came into focus, realized that it's someone on a lawnmower. So it seems she had stumbled upon somebody's farm or field, I guess, and the person was mowing the lawn. And as the sound got closer and closer, you could see the panic in her eyes, like, oh my God, if this person doesn't see me, they are going to run me over with their lawnmower, essentially, and she would end up dead. Fortunately for her, I don't know if it was the sound of her watch doing that beeping sound or the bright red, um, what do you call it, the jacket she was wearing. But the man saw that there was somebody laying in the field. So then he stopped his lawnmower and went up to her and began asking her questions. Miss, are you okay? There was this elderly man. He looks like Santa Claus's cousin with his white beard, white, gray, gray beard, gray hair. And he was so confused, like, what are you doing here? Like she looks dead, but her eyes are open. And he took her pulse and realized that, oh, she wasn't actually dead. When you go to the doctor, sometimes they do this test where they move their finger and they're like, follow my finger. So that's what he did, and she followed his finger, and it confirmed to him that, oh yeah, like she's lucid, she understands what's happening. Dude was kind of talking to himself, and he's like sort of narrating what is happening to himself, and he was like, you can see me, And then she blinked once, and it wasn't and the typical short blink. It's like she lingered on the blink, and he realized that that was her way of communicating with him. And he was like, "Wait, do that again." And she blinked, she lingered again and opened her eyes. And he was like, "You can hear me?" And then she blinked again, lingered, telling him that's a yes. And then he asked, "Can you move?" And this time she blinked and then blinked twice, meaning that no. So then he realized that, okay, truly she's lucid, she understands what's going on. And they have a way to communicate, sort of. Then ask her, "Are you hurt?" And she blinks twice, telling him that she's not hurt. And he's like, "Good." And he was like, "Okay, just hang on. I'm going to take you inside and call 911." And then Santa Claus's cousin got up and walked in and came back with a wheelbarrow. They didn't show how this old man, he's elderly, he's like in his 70s at least, 60s at least. He was somehow able to lift her into the wheelbarrow and then roll her into his house. He rolls her into, he wheelbarrows her into his home. And just when they get inside, before he's even able to pick up the phone to call 911, there is a knock on the door. And Iris is smart. Iris immediately starts blinking profusely. And the guy's looking at her like, "Oh, why is she blinking no so many times?" Alerting him to the possibility that maybe the person knocking at the door is a danger to her. The moment Santa Claus's cousin opens the door, this guy, Richard, is there. He's panting. He's panting. "Oh, thank God. Thank God. I can't find my wife." And then he tells this fake story about how he was arguing with his wife. Remember the story he told Iris before about his girlfriend Chloe? He essentially used that story, but this time implied that it was Iris, that he was arguing with his wife in the car, and then they got into an accident. And then he went on to try to explain Iris's like current state of paralysis. He was like, when she gets like that, she has mental health issues. When she gets like that, she completely locks down. She becomes comatose. That's the word he used to and the guy was just looking at him like, "Okay." And then he was like, I need a phone. I need to make a phone call. Have you seen her first of all?" And he was like, "No, I haven't seen her. I need a phone." And the guy was like, "Okay, hold on, wait." He closed the door, went in and took the phone and started dialing. And then when he turned around, Richard had entered the house. He was like, "What? Hey, why? I told you to wait at the door. Why are you here? What are you doing here? I asked you to stay out." And Richard, he's acting like someone who is so confused, like they can't even think straight. He was like, "Sorry, I just need help." And he was looking at, as he was doing this, he was looking around the place, and then he saw the wheelbarrow in the guy's kitchen, in the old man's kitchen. So the old man keeps trying to escort Richard out of his house because he's so suspicious of him. And Richard just keeps pretending like he's so distraught. He sits down and he was like, I need a phone. I need a phone. And the old man is like, "Okay, I can call 911 and help them find your wife, or I can call 911 and tell them I have an intruder in my home." And Richard looks at him, smiles, and then he realizes that, oh, he's about to like be in a precarious situation. Okay, so he then starts crying, starts sobbing, and you can see the old man's face immediately soften when he sees him crying. It's unusual for men to use tears for manipulation. People aren't accustomed to seeing men crying. So the moment he started seeing him crying now, he started thinking, "Oh, maybe this guy is actually like, maybe he's actually just distraught." Richard somehow convinces the old man that if he calls the police and the police come and find his wife, they will take her away from him. And the old man buys this story, so then he clicks off on the 911 call he had already started dialing. Richard introduces himself to the old man as Andrew. He starts spewing the story up. He claimed his wife, Chloe, referring to Iris, she has mental health issues, and she started losing it, accusing him of things that he didn't do. And she threatened to leave him while they were driving on the road. And he started yelling at her because he was so frustrated. And then she stepped on the accelerator, and that's how they got into an accident. It was to explain the gash on his forehead, I guess. See, the old man started softening up because he was telling the story so convincingly, so emotionally, right? And then he says when she gets this way, she gets catatonic. She locks up, she refuses to talk, move, etc. And the old man is beginning to believe Richard slash Andrew. He realizes that he has struck a nerve with the old man by talking about a female partner that they care about. He asks the old man, do you also have someone? And the old man now starts revealing his story about how his wife passed away of a heart attack, and that his wife was always so focused and concerned about him that to an extent she neglected herself. Next thing they know, she had a heart attack and she passed away. You can tell the old man he really regrets this. He wish he could take it back. He could change things because he really loved his wife. But unfortunately, it's too late. After the old man is done telling his story as well, Richard slash Andrew looks at him sadly and says, the world takes what it wants. If you recall, that's what Iris told him when they were talking about her dead son, Mateo. So, like I said, he picks up, it's like he has no personality of his own. He just picks up stories and stuff from other people and incorporates it into himself. Talk about a psychopath, right? So, after all this, you can see that he and the old man, they feel connected. He feels like, yeah, this is a man who is fighting for his marriage. So then the old man draws close to him and says, okay, you know what? I haven't been completely honest with you. And Richard is like, all this time, you can see that Iris is laying behind the sofa Richard is sitting on. And he can't see her. It's covering her to an extent. So when the old man leans forward and said, okay, I haven't been straight with you. You can see Iris just get, oh God, no, he's been able to convince him right here. All from her eyes, because she can't move any other parts of her body, but you can see the look of resignation on her face and her eyes. And I was like, really? How so? And the old man is about to reveal to Richard slash Andrew that actually your wife is here, etc. And just in that moment, Richard's phone starts to ring. It was on silent, but you could hear the vibration. He sort of freezes. He reaches down and turns it off. And when Richard knocked on the old man's door the first time, he claimed that he had lost his phone in the accident, right? That's why he used the I need to make a call as an excuse to like get into the old man's house. So just now the woman realized that, okay, he's lying to me. And the old man says, you told me you had lost your phone in the wreckage. And you can see the old man's demeanor completely changed. He went back into protective guard mode. The moment he got back into guard mode, he sort of, see, when someone is feeling connected with you, they draw closer to you. But the moment he got into guard mode, he stepped back like, mm. Anyway, the woods are a big place. You must have gotten lost in it. And Richard was like, sorry, you were about to tell me something. What were you about to tell me? The old man said, nothing. I didn't have anything to tell you. Richard saw that he had lost the plot. Like he wasn't in a place to successfully manipulate Richard anymore. So once again, you see, when he met Iris, he was super friendly. And then just when he got her into a position that he knew he could take advantage of her, his whole demeanor changed into that of a serial killer. In this case, he went from a sobbing, desperate husband looking for his wife. His demeanor completely changed. His tone changed and was like, tell me something, William. The old man's name is William. And he turned and he was like, how do you know my name? Richard was said, I read your mail. Richard references the wheelbarrow he saw in the kitchen previously and he was like, I know she's here. You always keep a wheelbarrow in your kitchen. William realizes that, okay, this dude is not going to leave simply, so he has to come up with something. So William, the old man, he started telling him, okay, I'm sorry. And I didn't know what to do. That's why I lied. She's in the shed outside. Richard was looking at him suspiciously. He didn't completely believe him. So he said, okay, At the time, William was holding a phone. So Richard asked for the phone. Okay, give me the phone while he goes to look in the shed. He hands it to him. William hands it to Richard. And so Richard turns towards the door to go outside and go and check the shed. And William pushes him against a bookcase, and the bookcase falls on him. William is able to retrieve the phone and quickly dial 911. As he's dialing, Richard tells him, they won't get here soon enough. And William is like, you think I'm afraid of you? The 911 operator picks up, and William says, there is a man in my house, and I think he means to hurt me. And Richard said, no, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to kill you. And then it starts a fight. So they begin fighting. This is a fight between what looks like a 70-year-old man and a dude in like his late 30s to 40s. And for an old man, William is actually pretty good. He beats up the wimp of a guy, Richard. And when Richard realizes that, okay, he's actually losing this fight with this old man, he goes back to his typical tactic of using what a person has told him to sort of manipulate. And in telling the story, William mentioned how he used to be kind of a physical man, violent, right? And that was what made his wife so focused on him and helping him become better. So William and Richard started referencing that, saying that, what would your wife think of you? Literally trying to turn this man defending himself as if it's something that he's just being violent for no reason with no cause. What would your wife think of you? She'll be ashamed of you after all the work she put into taming you, blah, blah, blah. And then he said something that really triggered William. He was like, she'll probably have another heart attack. And you know, his wife died of a heart attack. So that it triggered William so bad, he launched at him. What William didn't know was that Richard had somehow, as he was lying on the floor, his hand had been searching, he had found a knife. So when William launched at him, Richard stabbed William's leg, and then that made him sort of sink down to his level, and it gave Richard an advantage, and Richard was able to end William. When he was done unaliving William, he opened the door and went to check in the shed, because William had told him that Iris was in the shed. She wasn't there. There was no one there. He walks back into the living room, looks around, and the way William had laid Iris, he couldn't find her. So he was like, okay, you know what? If I can't find her, let me burn this place down, right? He in the shed, there was a gallon of gasoline, something flammable. He started pouring the flammable liquid around, and Iris realized it, so she was panicking because where she was hidden, she would get burned. She can't move. So she forced and used all her strength to move one finger, and she started tapping on the wooden floor. Richard heard the sound, but he couldn't see anybody there. So he just ignored it and thought he was making like a mistake. He set the place on fire. I suspect his goal for setting the fire was to, one, if he's not able to find Iris and somehow she's there, it would kill her. Two, to also sort of mess up the crime scene so that when the police come, his DNA and everything, they will not be able to track it back to him. He takes William's car keys and goes out and sits in William's car. He doesn't have a car in that moment. And he's sitting down, looking at the house, waiting for it to burn to some extent before he leaves, assured that he has covered up his tracks, right? Iris is panicking because she's laying down and the fire is getting worse and worse. And where she's laying, there are blinds there. There's a window with blinds. So she's able to read, and blinds usually have this string that you use to open and close them. So she forces and forces, and she's able to hold onto the string. And then she starts yanking it. So where Richard is sitting in the car, he's looking into the house, like at that window perspective. And he realizes that, no, like the blinds are open and closing. That just doesn't happen. Coupled with the tap he had heard around that vicinity when he was inside the house, he realized that, okay, she's probably there. So he went back in and then took a closer looked behind the sofa, and then he saw Iris laying there. He was so relieved. He was like, You have been so much work, right? And then he carries her and puts Iris in the car, and then they drive off. And as they are driving off, Richard's phone rings again. I'm sure it's the same person that was calling him when he was sitting in William's house. Before he answered the call, he pinched Iris's arm and she made this sound. She couldn't breathe. I think he wanted confirmation that the paralytic had not worn off to the point where she can now like talk or scream. You know, the paralytic is supposed to last 1 hour. So I suspect the 1 hour is up and the effects have started going down. That's how come she was able to tap. And that's how come she was able to yank the blinds as well. So he answered the call, put it on loudspeaker. And a little girl with this, not too little, she sounds like kind of teenager. She was like, "Hey, Dad." And Iris's eyes went like, "Ooh." You see, you never think that monsters like this have like family, children who love them and talk to them like regular human beings. So Iris was surprised that, oh, he has a daughter and family. And he and his daughter had this whole conversation. She was so proud of herself. She had gotten her results from her exams and she had all A's and one B, which was exciting. She told him, "Oh, Mom said we can celebrate at breakfast tomorrow." And Richard was like, "Oh no, honey, I'm away. Remember, I won't be back until Sunday evening." And the daughter was like, um, "No, Mom says we are coming up to the cabin as well. So it means that they are coming up to the cabin tomorrow and they would be able to meet with him." And Richard just goes silent. They are coming to ruin his fun. If his family is in the cabin, how is he going to perform his serial killer activities effectively, right? Richard is not too happy to hear this, and he asked to speak to his wife. So then the daughter gives the phone to the wife, and he tries to convince the wife that, oh, he needs his time alone, he needs his time away. That's how he can be the best version of himself. And the wife was like, "Okay, you know what? I also need a co-parent. Okay, I'm also tired, so we are coming." The wife insists that they are coming. So then he says, "Okay, sure, no problem. He'll see them at 10." When Richard ends the call, he's so upset. He starts speeding up because it's like he needs to condense what he was going to use 2 days to accomplish. He needs to condense it until the following morning by 10 before his family gets there. The car runs out of gas. So Richard moves into the nearest fuel station and he gets out to pump the gas. Then there's someone has written on a piece of paper and stuck on it that the card reader is out of order, meaning he has to walk into the convenience store attached to the fuel station and pay for the gas before he can now come and pump the gas. So he walks off into the convenience store, but he makes sure to be standing very close to the door so that he can be watching the car and Iris as he's doing what he's inside there to do. The car is parked there and Iris is waiting for Richard to come back. We see that an SUV drives into the fuel station as well. And the dad also reads the same message that, oh, the credit reader is out of order. So he also goes in to pay for the fuel. But there is a wife and a son in his SUV. And the son slides open the door of the SUV and steps out to just play around while he waits for his father to pump the fuel. His mom is sitting in the front seat, pressing her phone. She's distracted. She doesn't see that his son has stepped out to do God knows what. While Iris is just laying in the car, the little boy just comes to her mirror, her window, right? And she just looks at him, and I think the little boy reminded her of her son, Mateo. There must have been something in her eyes because he actually drew closer and began staring at her, and they were just staring at each other. They weren't saying anything. All of a sudden, the little boy's mom comes behind him and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I was just saying hello." And the mom looks at Iris, and I think women's intuition, right? She clocked that something is strange is going on here, but she didn't say anything. She casually just said, "Well, you don't do that," and she took her son and moved away with him. Richard saw it, so he started quickly coming back. Stepped He stepped in quickly, and the woman and her child went back to their SUV and left Iris oh, to her fate. So Richard returns, pumps the fuel quickly, and then they start driving off. But the whole time, the mother of the little boy, she was standing there just staring at the cars. I mean, you could see her pressing on her phone. Like she could sense that something was wrong, right? So then they drive off and get on the road. Richard drives off to where his car had crashed. And then when he gets there, he goes and opens his car and picks out his killer kit. In it was a syringe and the things that he used to sort of tie her up, and then baby wipes for some reason. He brought them back and put them at the front seat in front of where Iris is sitting, the dashboard of the car. And then he covers it up with a t-shirt. And he goes to the back of William's truck and sees this thing that is used to tow cars. It's like a really strong chain with hooks at the end. You can hook to one car and then hook to another and tow the car. So his plan, I guess, was to tow his damaged car. So as he's in the process of doing that, Iris starts moving and she realized that, okay, before she couldn't do anything at all, but now she can count her fingers to some degree. She's able to touch, meaning what? The paralytic is starting to wear off some more and her motor skills are beginning to come back, right? Which is good. And just then we see a cruiser, which is a cop car, coming in from the back, stops, and then a policeman steps out of it. It appears the mother of the young boy at the filling station, she had actually contacted the authorities and told them that, okay, there is a car with this with this description of this license plate that she thinks is suspicious. There's a woman in there that she believes needs help. Maybe wonder why didn't she help her at the filling station, but she has her child there, right? She didn't want to risk causing any trouble, risking her life and that of her child. So it makes sense. But she did the right thing and called the police. The policeman goes and looks. He steps out of his cruiser and goes and looks into the passenger seat, and he's staring at Iris and she's not moving. Like she's breathing heavy because she's noticed he's standing there, but she can't see anything. She's not moving. And he knocks on the window to like try and rouse her. He thinks maybe she's, I don't know, distracted or something. He tries to rouse her and she doesn't react, but then it alerts Richard that somebody is there. So then Richard sees him and he immediately puts on his super friendly demeanor. Hey, I'm so glad to see you. And the policeman moves away from the window to talk to Richard. She's like, okay, is everything okay? They got a call that's like this car needs help. And Richard said, no, it must have been a mistake. The policeman was like, no, but the person provided this license plate, so it's definitely not a mistake. Do you mind if I speak to your passenger? I need to be sure that she's lucid, she's awake. And Richard was like, you and me both. And the policeman says, how so? And he explains that his wife is drunk, and the policeman is surprised that this early in the morning. And Richard says, yeah, nowadays he basically implies that his wife is now, she's an alcoholic. Alcoholics, doesn't matter what time of the day it is, or if they are awake, they are trying to drink. And the policeman says, oh, okay, what's your name? And he introduces himself as Andrew again. Andrew is the same name he told William. And the policeman says, okay, can I see your license? And so he opens up his wallet and gives him his license. And it confirms that it's Andrew. So it looks like his real name is Andrew. So I'm wondering, why did he lie to Iris that his name was Richard? I don't know, but anyway. So then the policeman says, oh, this is a problem. Like, your license is expired. Oh, yeah, I've been meaning to get around to fixing it. Sorry. So the policeman walks around the accident car and sees that like the front is damaged and everything. So he comes and he's like, okay, tell me what happened here. Why is like the car in this state? And Richard tells this story about how this morning his wife peeled herself from the floor, implying that she was already drunk when she woke up and decided to go for a joyride And she ended up having this accident. She called him, and then he came back. He got up and then came to help her out. And the policeman was like, okay, but the call they received said that your like both him and his wife were in the car at the fuel station. So he couldn't have been coming to help her if she was also in the car. That's when Richard said, oh yeah, after picking her up, he took her to a fuel station to make sure to like buy some supplies to clean her up extra before they came back to finish. It's like, okay. And the policeman says, but you said you weren't in the car. And he says, yes, like the accident car. And I was like, so what happened to your forehead? Remember, Richard has a gash on his forehead. And now Richard is stuck. He's not able to like, he doesn't know how to answer the question, right? Because he's lying. Policemen, they are smart. I think they are trained to like believe everybody's lying. Because it was me, I would have bought a story. That's the policeman didn't buy a story. And you see, Iris's motor skills have started coming back. So then she moved her hand and she has struggled and she was able to like start rolling the glass down. Iris made a sound when she was like rolling down the window. So it attracted both of them their attention. So the policeman said, well, you can't answer, maybe she can. So then he walks over to Iris and begins asking her questions. He was asking her questions and she wasn't answering. So the policeman saw that everything isn't right here. So he got super aggressive. He turned to Richard. He was like, sir, I need you to tell me what's going on here. Richard is realizing that, he's losing this one. Once again, he puts on this sorry, desperate husband demeanor. And he started explaining, he started telling the story about, he used Iris's real story, which is that her son died. Her son called Mateo died. And he inserted himself as the husband in the story. So he told the policeman that, a couple of months ago, their son died. And that's when his wife threw himself into alcoholism, right? And no one can save her, blah, blah, blah. You can see the policeman soften up to him. And the policeman had asked him why, when he had an accident, he didn't call 911. He used that as an excuse to say he didn't call 911 because nobody can save her, blah, blah, blah. The policeman was beginning to believe his sob story. Right? And when he was telling the story, Iris like began to cry because he was using her story to essentially trap her. And I suspect that gave her some unseen adrenaline boost, because suddenly she was able to like force herself to start to talk. So she started making sounds, started sounding out, help me, but it wasn't too clear. But when she started to do that, the policeman realized that, okay, she's beginning to talk. So he moved away from Richard and went back to Iris's window. So the policeman couldn't fully hear what she was saying, but then she used her eyes to signal to him that look on the dashboard, look on the dashboard. So the policeman looked there and he took off the shirt that Richard had put on his murder kit. And he saw the injection, the syringe, and then the things for tying up somebody. He immediately saw that, okay, this is not a husband and wife like normal situation, something is going on. So then he immediately turned and he tried to pick his gun. His gun was hoisted around his waist, so he tried to like remove it to use it. But Richard had already seen that, okay, the way things are getting, he's about to be caught. So he picked up the thing for towing the cars, the metallic chain with the hooks around it. And before the policeman could fully remove his gun to shoot, he started hitting him with it. And this is like a heavy metal, right? It tore off like half of the policeman's face after multiple hits, and he killed the policeman. So at the beginning of the day, Richard went from never having killed a man before, his only victims were women, to killing two men in the span of a few hours. So after killing the policeman, he dragged his body into his cruiser, his car, and then he took the policeman's gun. So now this killer has an additional weapon on him. He took the policeman's gun, and then he poured the remaining of the inflammable liquid he used to burn William's house. He poured it on the policeman's car and set that one too on fire. He got back into the car and sparked it. We see that before, on the dashboard in front of Iris had been the zip ties, the thing for tying her up, the baby wipes and the syringe. But when he got back after killing the policeman and setting his car on fire, he got back into the car. The syringe was no longer on the dashboard. We see it, but Richard is so like occupied with all that is going on that he didn't notice that Iris had picked up the syringe, and the syringe contains some of the paralytic that he had injected into her. So she too, he has a gun, but she has a weapon, his own weapon. So as he's driving away, he's so frustrated, he's so angry. Iris's ability to talk begins to come back. So I think she took something from his playbook of using what you told you against you. So she started sort of, did I say taunting him? But she started saying, "Oh, tomorrow is a big day. Family is coming over. You see the call with the daughter." She asked him if he had ever tried the paralytic before, and he said no. So she was like, "You're a coward. You are inflicting this thing on women and killing them. From what we gather, and you are not even bold enough to use it on yourself." And he was like, "Well, I've been there before." And she was like, oh, "Okay." When Chloe died, he was incapacitated for 2 months, I think. And she asked him, "So, is that when you lost your mind?" "I didn't lose my mind. I found clarity." Richard began explaining how his whole life he had felt disconnected, like he felt like something was wrong. And in the moment of the accident, as he was watching Chloe die, he felt something he had never felt before. It was something special, and he was wondering if he had felt God. Then he realized that no, he hadn't felt God. He was God. Talk about a God complex. So ever since then, he's been chasing that feeling. That's why he became a serial killer. So I think he was kind of like a psychopath, and so he didn't have these normal human emotions. That's why he says he was feeling disconnected his whole life. So then when he started killing, it was the only time that he could feel those like regular human feelings. When he had first met Iris, he had told her that he said something to Chloe. So now Iris is realizing that he didn't say it before she died. He was saying it at the moment that she was dying. So she asked him, "What did you say to her?" And you know what he said to her? "Thank you." So it's like he was thanking her because her dying had opened up his eyes to a means through which he could finally feel connected in his life. And Iris started trying to appeal to his conscience. I don't know why she thought he had a conscience, but she started saying that she was referencing the fact that he has a family, he has a daughter. And you can see he really loves his daughter because the moment she brought up his daughter, he was like, "Don't talk about my daughter." So he was like, "You'll never see her again if you are caught. You know this thing you are doing. You will get caught. Like, come with me." And she started telling him, "I don't know your name. I don't know where you live. Just leave me by the roadside. I won't tell anyone. You'll be fine. And you can stop this so that you don't have to lose your child like I did." And Richard was like, "Shut up." He was asking her to keep quiet, but she could see that she was really getting to him. In an effort to land the final blow, I guess, Iris was like, "If you remember, it's something he said to her. Broken doesn't have to mean hopeless." And I feel like that did something to him. I suspect his whole life he had felt broken, right? So when Iris implied that he was broken, because at first you could see that he was triggered. He looked like he may even be considering truly leaving her by the roadside and trying to turn his life around. But his demeanor completely changed the moment she made that statement, and he was more angry than sad, and he was like, "I'm not effing broken. Change of plans, Iris." And then he turned the car around. It looks like he's decided he's had enough of Iris, and he's just going to cut things short, and get to the end, which is unaliving her. He drove her to this secluded place by what looked like a river with a boat just at the side. So in the car, he was like, "So sorry we had to skip to the end." So it seems that because his family is coming to, he's getting so frustrated with her. She's not going without a fight, right? She's making things extremely difficult for him. So he decided, okay, he skipped a lot of steps. Usually he probably takes them to his cabin, spends a whole weekend with them doing God knows what, and then brings them to the lake to kill them. So he had skipped all of that and just brought her to the end, which is the lake to kill her. So he began talking. You see, a villain's monologue. Before they do something to you, they start talking plenty. And remember, Iris had taken the syringe. So as he was talking now, she stabbed it. She used all her energy and she stabbed into him. But it's left with her to press the thing that causes the liquid to actually enter into your bloodstream. And her finger, for the life of her, could not press it. So she had succeeded in lifting her hand with the syringe and stabbing him with it. But now, when it came to pressing the thing down, she could not. So he froze, and she was trying. He was looking at her. It almost looked like he wanted her to succeed in pushing the syringe into him, right? But she wasn't able to. So after some time, he peeled her hand off of the syringe and then pulled it out of his leg. Can you? She was so close. Can you imagine? He then explained to her that, yeah, as like her muscles are coming back, she would be able to move them to some extent, but it will be uncoordinated. And even though she would have times when she's energized and can do things like lift her whole hand, do what she did, she won't be able to sustain it for the initial stage. Saying he presses the thing and spills the liquid all over. So right now, her weapon, her only weapon that she had, he has destroyed it essentially, so she can't use it anymore. After spraying out everything that was in the syringe, they had this long emotional talk where Iris was like, why did you do it? Like, why did he talk her out of killing herself? Because she wanted to die. And he talked her out of it only to like kill her a few hours later. And he got up on the fact that she wanted, past tense, wanted to die. And now that she wants to be alive, he's gonna kill her. I don't know. He's messed up in the head, but he really liked the fact that that was the case. So he got out of the car and then took a knife. And Iris started screaming. So her motor skills are coming because now not only can she talk, she can scream now. So that's a good thing for her. And he dragged her out of the car and dragged her into the boat that was by the river. So now he had two weapons: the policeman's gun, and then the knife he had taken from William's car. So as they were in the boat, he was preparing. He put an anchor into the water to like anchor the boat in one place. And then Iris started crying, weeping. And he turned around and he had this look, this prideful look, like he was so proud of himself. He was like, look how far you come. Meaning she wanted to kill herself. Now she's crying that she's about to die. And he was so proud of himself that he was the vehicle that got her from point A to point B. She had seen the weapons in his back, which is the gun and the knife, right? As he was bending over, putting the anchor in the river. So he was like, she was like, can you please do me a favor? And he was looking at her like, yeah, what do you need? He was like, can you please at least take my Mateo's boat for me? It's in my pocket. The red children's boat that he had brought into the car the first time he incapacitated her. And then when she escaped, she put it inside her pocket. That's what she's referring to. Like, can you please remove it for me? Okay, so he says, all right, I'll take it out for you. So then he gets close, really close to her, right? And then he bends down into her pocket. And she's like, the other side. And he's looking at her suspiciously like, I hope you're not planning anything. But he still decides to go to the other side to take the boat out for her. And she looked at him and she was like, the first, like when he tased her, remember, the first when he tased her, he said, I'm sorry, before he tased her and kidnapped her. So when he was crouched down like that, trying to like pick the boat from her pocket, she looked at him and she was like, I'm not sorry. And in that moment, he realized that she has gotten an advantage over him. So he tried to look back. She had somehow been able to remove the knife from his back without him even feeling it. And so as he was trying to turn back to grab the gun, she stabbed him. The knife went like through here and came out through his face here. So she used all the strength that she had in the world to stab him. So he stumbled back, and then he I don't know if human beings can really do this. He pulled the knife that was inside his face. He pulled it out, threw it down, and then reached for the policeman's gun. As he was reaching for the gun, he was so disoriented that he ended up throwing himself off of the boat into the water, but the gun fell into the boat, right? And the moment he fell into the water, Iris saw the gun and she started crawling towards the gun to pick it up because his hands appeared over the boat again, like he wasn't dead and gone. He was trying to get back. Fortunately for her, she was able to grab the gun up before he fully got into the boat, and she shot him multiple times and he fell back into the water, hopefully dead. It appears Richard is dead because we see him just floating away from the boat in the water. And Iris finally, for the first time since she realized that dude was dangerous and was about to do something to her, she felt safe. She started laughing. She was lying. She was still, he had restrained her with the zip ties again. So she was still lying on the boat. She was laughing. She was excited to have survived, happy to be alive, right? She couldn't celebrate for long though. Before next thing you know, water starts seeping into the boat. So, and when she grabbed the gun and she was shooting, she wasn't aiming, she was just shooting in his general direction. So she had ended up shooting the boat as well and sort of poking holes inside the boat. So then the boat started getting like filled up with water. The water starts to flood the boat. It was a very, should I call it a boat? It's a canoe, actually, a canoe. Yeah. So she's zip tied and her motor skills have not yet completely come back. So she was just laying there. And we see the water just engulf her and she drowns. The end. No, not really. That's not the end. That would have been such an anticlimactic end, right? Anyway, so it looked like she drowned because she just sank. As the water was taking over the canoe, it sank. But then after a while, we see that she did not actually drown. The river was able to like wash her closer to the dock. Should I call the dock? Yeah, the wooden thing that's like connects the land to a bit of a distance into the river, and so she's able to get close to it, like, and then climb. Her motor skills to have improved a lot since then, and she's able to climb onto land, and she doesn't die. So once she's able to get onto the wooden plank, she was safe. And then she held her hand up and then started counting like she does. And she saw that, okay, she's able to better count all her fingers. So her motor skills seem to have almost completely come back. And she's breathing a sign of relief. She's excited that she didn't die after this terrible ordeal. And she hears sound on the other side of the lake, right? And she turns and sees that Richard, after getting stabbed in the face, in and across the face, getting shot multiple times, he was still laying there fighting for his life. So that was him like panting. That's what she was hearing. So then she, still with her hands zip tied, she walked over to him, knelt down beside him as he was dying. Yeah, because he's definitely going to die. And she whispered to him, "Thank you." Remember, he said when Chloe was dying, when he got his enlightenment, he told her thank you when she was dying. So she was returning the favor because she wanted to die. And now, due to this ordeal, she wants to live. Then she knelt down beside him and she was like, "Thank you." And she stood up and walked away as he was taking what I hope is his final breath. They didn't actually see him die, but I'm hoping and trusting that that was his final breath he was taking and he died. So that's the end of the movie. What did you think of this? I mean, I went to the movie thinking, she can't move. Like, how is she gonna like survive? How is she gonna escape this person? But it was a great watch. I enjoyed it a lot. The title of the movie is "Don't Move," and it's streaming on Netflix right now. If you want to watch it.